Hey, it's the Rican. And um, look, listen, I use the fact that I'm Puerto Rican and Hispanic or Latino, whatever you want to call me. I kind of use it as a weapon. You know, I use it a weapon against the left because there's certain things that I saw that was going on, especially in the past, probably in the past, what, 6 to 8 years, maybe that you would use the left uses the cudgel of racism. They use the cudgel of identity politics because they group us all together. Okay, and it's tearing us apart. It's tearing this country apart because this whole thing. If you disagree with someone's politics, then they want to equate that with you also not liking that person, uh, person's race, whether they're Asian, Jewish, Black, Hispanic, whatever. That's what they do. That's what the left does with identity politics. Um, and I'm going to show you. Um, First, I want to show you this great monologue by Greg Gutfeld. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's too long. I'm going to play 2 minutes of it. Right, 2 minutes of it. Yeah, yeah, but just a little over 2 minutes of it. I would say just watching it from the beginning. I just cut it there because just for time purposes. But it's a great monologue. It's funny, but it's also on point. And let's see. Let's bring this up. Let's hopefully it doesn't stall on me and doesn't do no commercials. So here we go for your enjoyment.
All groups. In fact, there are bigger differences within one group than there are between two groups. It's why you have an Einstein and a Tom Arnold. It's why you have Thomas Sowell and Joy Reid. There are bigger differences within race than between races. That's huge. And why? Because we're individuals. We're brilliant, funny, weird, high IQ. But enough about me. We're also depressed and crazy and vulnerable and dangerous. Okay, enough about Kat. But it's not between groups, it's among people, individuals. So do I owe an explanation for short, violent dumbasses because I'm short? Hell no. Just as I don't take credit for all the great work little people do, like acting as a shoe tree in my closet. But if you favor group identity over the individual, you would, but you don't, because we see the person. Only the left and the media see groups. The only herd mentality on our end is walking away from them. And the only place the left doesn't want division is in math class. Look at Kat, look at Tyrus, and look at me. The most important thing to gain from this show is that we are different persons. I don't see Kat as a white chick. Tyrus doesn't see me as a white male. Well, he doesn't see me at all, depending on how close or far I am to him. Nor do I only see him as a giant who can flick me into space with his pinky. I see him as maybe the smartest guy I've ever met. I just hope Kudlow isn't watching. I told him the same thing in the steam room. And I see Kat as the funniest creature on earth, and she's not even trying to be funny. She's just being Kat. So in short, white supremacy, identity politics, you media. What we are doing right now on this show is the answer. We embrace the person, not the pigment. So screw your identity. It's an evil that helps no race. It's just about power, as evil always is.
And he's absolutely correct. When it comes to when it comes to identity politics, it's about power. It's about consolidating power. It's not, they act like it's about caring about people of color. Okay. But it's not. It's about power. It's about how can they wield that one ring. It's a Lord of the Rings reference for people who don't get that. But that's what's going on with identity politics. That's, um, this whole thing about the Buffalo shooter and, white, he should be condemned. He should be ostracized. white supremacy, this was a real white supremacist attack, should be condemned. And equally, the the Waukesha Christmas parade massacre guy should be condemned. The Brooklyn shooter should be condemned. Uh, what was the name of that nightclub in Chicago that shot up the gay guys? That went to the gay nightclub. Anyway, in Florida, these people should be condemned. And the problem is, when we're linking identity to your political persuasion, it's what's tearing this country apart. Because I remember me growing up as a kid. Okay, I grew up in the Lower East Side. Uh, I grew up surrounded by projects, but I also grew up with condos and co-ops. So I grew up around like Jews. I grew up around because I grew up next to Chinatown. So I grew up with Asians. I grew up around the projects. There's blacks and Latinos. Okay, but it's the whole thing. Sometimes I didn't fit in because I didn't I talked properly. I spoke properly. And they would, be like, "Oh, why are you trying to talk white?" Because I don't know. I just didn't associate success with street talk. And still, unless you're a rapper, street talk's not going to get you. Um, you're not going to get too successful um, talking street. Now you can have street smart, and that could help you be successful. Okay, because just because I didn't speak that way didn't mean I didn't have street smarts. But that's the whole problem with identity politics, is that, like that you said. So, the biggest example of this right now is the Asian community, or I should say also with Jews, because like there's a huge upswing in New York City with anti-Semitism, and the media will report on the attacks. But the problem why it doesn't reach more coverage is because the fact that who's doing the attacking? Blacks and Latinos. So that, and so the Jewish attacks don't get as much coverage. If it was a white person, like what happened in Buffalo, you're going to see 24/7 coverage. But if it's a black person, you know, doing the attack, it'll be in the news in New York. That's it, and it'll be in the New York. If you're lucky, it'll be like one of the tail end stories. Okay, same thing like with the Asian person that they'll talk about. Oh, anti-Asian attacks are on the rise, and they'll say it's because of COVID, post-COVID, and all that stuff. And the attacks that happen, like in New York, have been same thing, black and Latino. Um, but the left claims that they care about people of color. And I'm gonna hear here's a not him, but the lady who's gonna talk after him. She brings up a good example about what's going on with Asians.
Like China, like Asian Americans families are they're moving into more and more voting for Republicans because they value education, they value their kids and quality of their education. Now they say all this stuff. Oh, my kids' AP class is canceled. And also Asian children, when they're trying to apply for Harvard, Yale, they get discriminated because there's a quotas. They're too excellent. You cannot go if you have to wait at the bottom of the line once the quotas is gone. And the DOJ dropped the lawsuit against Yale when the Asian parents sued Yale to say you're discriminating against our kids based on skin color because they're Asians. But instead of look at the individual meritocracy, which this country is supposed to be, and the left will say, oh, you Asians are too rich. Oh, it's about the class, economical class. It's a classical Marxist theory that it's, oh, we have highest income in the country than white. So now in Washington State, if you're Asian children, you're supposed to go to the white group because you make too much money.
Well, yeah.
So what she's talking about is that great. Um, I hope you heard it. Let me play it again because I just realized I didn't put the video up because play it one more time because I think it's very important what she's talking about. Because it's always talked about how the left and the Democrats they care so much about people of color, and what she talks about with the removal of AP classes, I'm offended by that because also in New York City, they in some parts of the country, they've removed what we called special progress classes growing up. It was for gifted kids or advanced kids. So like that, you kept those kids together. Okay. So I'm offended by that because the fact that this is, if you want to push kids to strive to do better, you put them together. You don't put, you know, a kid that's not as smart with the kid that's so smart that it's gonna mess up the curves. But anyway, let me just play her.
moving into more and more voting for Republicans because they value education, they value their kids and quality of their education. Now they say all this stuff. Oh, my kids' AP class is canceled. And also Asian children, when they're trying to apply for Harvard, Yale, they get discriminated because there's a quotas. They're too excellent. You cannot go if you have to wait at the bottom of the line once the quotas is gone. And the DOJ dropped the lawsuit against Yale when the Asian parents sued Yale to say you're discriminating against our kids based on skin color because they're Asians. But instead of look at the individual meritocracy, which this country is supposed to be, and the left will say, oh, you Asians are too rich. Oh, it's about a class, economical class. It's a classical Marxist theory.
And I want you, for people who don't know who Lily Tang Williams is, she's a former Chinese nationalist who moved here. So she's totally anti the Communist Party in China. So she knows this is stuff that she grew up with. So she understands the um, the evils of communism. She's fighting that here in this country now. She's running for Congress in New Hampshire, I believe it is. So, uh, so she knows where this is going. That's the whole problem. She knows where this is going, and like she said, there that they had to sue. The DOJ dropped this case, but they say they care about us. So why are they dumbing us down? Why do they uh, want to eliminate school choice? So if you're an underperforming school, you could go to a better school. Okay. But when they can't combat an idea with facts, that's when they go to the emotional ploy with identity politics. Same thing like they did with, like, let's say with the Georgia Rota bill. Okay. They said it was racist. They ended up they made such a fuss about it that the Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game out of Georgia. All right. But so far, Georgia early voting shatters records despite election reforms. Dems labeled voter suppression. It goes here. Georgia early voting outpaces 2018 and 2020, despite passing election security law. So even they'll say, "Oh well, even more people would have went out." Bullshit. Look, listen. All this is doing is putting a level of security on elections. If you're against just people having to show an ID to go vote, and you say that's racist, I call bullshit. Okay, it's not racist to have to show ID. If I if I go buy cough medicine at Walmart, I have to show an ID to prove that I'm over 18. Okay, if you go to buy beer, you have sometimes you in some places they'll make you show ID. Um, you go to the bank to open a bank account, you got to show ID. You go into a government building, you got to show ID. So why is it any different to go vote? The only reason that you're against election security is that it makes it harder to cheat. That's my opinion. That's how I feel. But what they do is they use the cudgel of identity politics and racism to go, We don't like this law. It's racist. It shouldn't exist. No, give me facts. Tell me where's the voter suppression. Here's the first election since the law was put in place and the voting numbers went up. And this is just a primary. This is not the general election. And the numbers are through the roof in Georgia. But they screamed voter suppression. No, that's nonsense. Okay. People move. I remember I got a ballot because I had moved it, was it 2019? I moved from out of so in Texas, Texas by mistake still sent me a ballot, a mail-in ballot in Pennsylvania. Okay, mistakes happen. Even with the most secure election laws, mistakes still happen. So, but we need these laws to place so like that, not because of voter suppression, but so like that, the vote is fair. But that's not what identity politics about. It's about wielding power. It's about being able to use your race as a weapon for political purposes. It's not accepting that each individual has their own ideas. If you're black, you're supposed to be Democrat. If you're Puerto Rican, you're supposed to be Democrat. And I say, nonsense. Stop falling for the identity politics. Look into what you believe. If you believe in strong family values, if you believe, uh, you know, a man can't get pregnant, if you don't believe that you should be able to have an abortion up to the point of birth, you may not be a Democrat anymore. The Democrat Party left you. They left you. They left you in the dust. They don't care. They're right now. Um, they're being controlled by the most radical portions of the left. And if they continue that way, where does it go? Where does it end? Well, she knows because she's lived it. And do you want that here? And I say no. So we need to, um, chill out, end this whole idea of identity politics. Stop with this group mentality and just focus on our individual selves. The government's not. We got food shortages. We got baby formula shortages. The government's not going to save you. Government's not going to save you. You have to take some personal responsibility. Okay, stock up on food. Stock up on water. Enough just in case if shit hits the fan, because you don't want to rely on the government to take care of you. Look at what's going on in China with their COVID lockdown, with people running out of food because they're waiting for the government to bring it to them. Do you want that for yourself? Do you want that for your family? I don't. So, food, guns, bullets. If if we get an economic collapse, that's going to be just as valuable as gold and silver. People always say gold and silver. Gold and silver is nice to have, but it's not going to feed you when you're hungry, and it's not gonna protect you if someone comes and wants to take your food. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm the Rican. Follow me on YouTube and Rumble. Please like and subscribe to the channel. You can interact with me either leave a comment or on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram. With that being said, have a good weekend, everyone.